the August 8th, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Ford.
Here.
Kays. Brink.
Here.
Aletsky.
Present.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
And Dolly, Spire, and Culhane are absent. We have a quorum, and for Board of Adjustment, we will need 4 in the affirmative for a pass. We need 5. God,
We need 2/3 of a full board for a variance and 2/3 of the present board for a conditional use.
yes, so we have 5 members here. So we need all 5 for a variance, 4 for a conditional use.
Correct.
All right.
With that, I'll move to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 4th item is the approval of the minutes from the July 18th meeting. Can I get a motion and a second?
Ford moves.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. 5th item on the agenda is 5A is board consideration of a conditional use. Brandy, will you take over, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So hang on, I'm just gonna make sure that this person on here is muted. Okay, so the request before you is for the property over by Interstate 29, New Venture 3rd Edition. If you are familiar with where McDonald's or the new My Place Hotel is, it is behind that area. So this was platted, I believe in 2018, just a few years ago, and it's zoned C3 Highway Commercial District. And so the request before you is to consider storage units and contractor shops as a conditional use in this area. And all the infrastructure improvements have been completed as far as the public infrastructure. There's detention outlots that are designated, that those will be designed with the project if it is approved. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Chair, has there been any talk from him about, he's asking for storage yards also?
That goes hand in hand with the contractor shops.
Right.
So it's like incidental. But his description on his application describes that he wants to do storage units, and the proposed, or the developer was in the storage unit business previously.
So this would be all storage in containers or buildings, but no outdoor storage?
Well, it's contractor shops and storage yards go hand in hand. So sometimes it's incidental.
Right, but I'm not going to be able to go out and take my boat dock and just store it outside.
Correct.
Thank you. And there is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing for this if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor or against this item. Please feel free to approach the mic and state your name for the record.
Hi, Joy Nelson, Haugen Nelson Realty. In regards to the proposed conditional use here, this land is, as far as a commercial use, it has very little exposure. It's hidden, behind the hotels. And therefore, the long time, on the market, it's not going to have walk-in trade back there being zoned, commercial. It's just, so I think it's a really good use for that land. And I just think it's a good way to get these on the tax rolls and put that land to good use. So Bill is here too, and I think he's going to talk to you.
Thank you, Joy. Afternoon, all. I'm Bill Folkerts. I am with New Venture Inc., which is a corporation that owns the land. I'm president of the corporation. I'm also here on behalf of the My Place Hotel, the Comfort Inn, it was a Comfort Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, So I'm got several hats today to talk about. So I'm in favor of this. Obviously, we're selling it. My wife is back here, so she can correct me if there's anything wrong. But with that, I would be willing to answer any questions that you might have about the property, which we've developed over the last 15, 20 years, I'm going to say, with 3 hotels. Actually, we built the Country Inn and Suites, but we don't own any part of that, but we did develop that. So with that, any questions anybody might have?
It was platted in 2018, too, just to
Correct.
confirm.
And the water retention ponds and all that information was done at that time too, and that's on file with the city.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, how many units are you planning to have?
That's a question for Joy. I'm selling the land. I'm not building. Excuse me. Let me get out of the way for you. Go ahead.
Bonnie, I don't think he has that plan completed yet. He wanted to make sure he got the conditional use, and then he'd draw the plan and, of course, bring it up here for, approval at permit time, so.
Thank you.
Probably, Mr. Chair, question for Brandy. So if these are going to be portable storage containers, which has been the norm in that business plan primarily, or are these going to be a building? And if it's, if with 3 separate lots, are you able to put over the lot lines with the storage of those buildings or the containers? How does that work?
So he could replat it, he could do development lot agreements that, just depending on where the easements are. So most likely it'll be a replat just to make it all one large property. And then he doesn't have an issue with setbacks or easements or anything then. And then also how our ordinance is, storage containers or shipping containers are storage units classified as that of how our ordinance is written today.
They meet setback requirements too, then?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are they going to go over that private drainage easement area, or are they going to go around that, or? is
They
that-
can't, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They can't, there's a private detention easement over top of it. So when they designed the site, I mean, if there's something that works out better, it was obviously located there because it's the low spot. But if there would be something that the developer wanted to manipulate with the site and relocate that detention pond, he totally could. We would just have to replat that easement. But as it sits today, or vacate the easement and then relocate it. But when it was designed, the reason why it's a private detention pond is because the city does not maintain commercial detention ponds. We do for residential, but this was going to be a regional facility. But now that one property owner is purchasing the 3 lots, then there doesn't need to be a shared maintenance agreement. So now, I mean, there wouldn't really need to be an easement over top of it because he most likely will be exceeding the over 1 acre of impervious surface. So he'll have to do a detention pond one way or another somewhere on the site.
Mr. Chair? And then if that was to occur, that would be done administratively?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. So Brandy, there's not going to be any screening. Don't we normally ask for screening on storage?
No,
Not
not necessarily.
Not in a highway commercial zone usually.
Yep, yeah.
We do sometimes
You-
in residential zones, right?
Yeah, if we see it in R3.
But we could ask for that here
Yeah,
since again, we're in the gateway.
no. We're not in the gateway overlay.
Well, you're off the interstate. No, it's better than the opposite side where we had it proposed before, obviously, in the industrial park over there. But so we could ask for some trees to be planted along the interstate edge there just to, if it's going to be storage, area and pods and,
I think that you could do that as a condition to say if it were shipping containers, that there has to be screening. But I have if these are nice buildings, then, the property owner might want some visibility from the interstate as well. So that could maybe be something that you differentiated, not knowing what the developer's plan is. If they're going to be, what you see storage facilities along interstates. And so if it's a nice building, then you wouldn't
It's a nice
necessarily
building, but
need.
you just said that it may be storage pods.
It could,
Okay.
yeah,
So we aren't guaranteed that it isn't going to be storage pods.
right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, quick question, more for just educational purposes. How much signage would they be allowed for this 3-acre parcel as far as height and dimensions?
So they could do depending on where another off-premise sign is, and then when you're by I-29, there's additional allowances. So that would just all be looked at the time of a permit issuance. In the C3 district, though, this one most likely would be allowed the 1,000 square feet for the entire property, but the off-premise sign or on-premise sign could only be 200 or 300 square feet. And then if there is something additional with the off-premise sign or a billboard, in other words, that when you're adjacent to I-29, that you could have additional like height and size requirements, but I don't think that they can do that because they have to be outside 500 feet of the nearest billboard.
Thank you.
The public hearing is still open if there's anyone else who wishes to speak in favor or against this item. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion in a second.
To get the ball rolling, I'll just start with a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board?
What does the board think about amending that motion that if storage containers are used, there's screening along the interstate side?
Screening such as trees.
Trees, right.
Mr.
I-
Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Diane, are you thinking on the north and the east sides of the property, or a portion of the half of the, what are you thinking as far as what would you be recommending?
Well, certainly the whole east side and a third of the north side, since that's the direction of the traffic.
Then are you thinking, not saplings, but like a 6 to 8 foot evergreen or
Right.
something along those lines?
Right.
Do you want to make that?
That amendment, yes, that along the east side and 1/3 of the north side, starting from the interstate over. Evergreen trees that would provide appropriate screening that are 6 to 8 feet tall.
But only if it's pods.
Only
If
if
they're
it's
going to build a
pods.
building, different story.
Right.
So we have an amended motion. Is there a second?
That,
The motion and a second.
I'll vote on the amendment,
So then we vote on the amendment first and then,
then a final dispense on, as amended, so.
okay. So is there any further discussion before we vote on the amendment?
So, and one clarification, it will be only if so say that he has shipping containers on the east side, only adjacent to that lot line, or anywhere on the property. Because, again, visibility with that property is a big deal.
We're talking lot 3,
Yeah.
lot 3.
Right.
We want to be specific just to lot 3, because that's about a third.
That's about a third. Well, it's really about a fourth, but still. So if there were any shipping containers essentially on lot 3.
Okay. Jeff,
You have to open the public hearing up again.
I'll open up the public hearing. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring to your attention, there already are some trees there. Will you count the trees that are on the highway property as part of your condition? because there are red cedars up in the corner. If you-
Yeah.
If you've gone by that, you know what I'm,
I
If
got it
they
pulled up.
provide screening,
oh, they do. They're
Yeah,
nice.
so here, guys, I have it pulled up on Google Earth as if
On
you
the
were.
whole east side of that lot 3.
So lot 3 is like right here.
right.
So, it would
So
be-
you have some screening there.
But they're on the highway property, that's my point.
oh, we can, let us talk about that, Bill.
Okay.
I'll reclose the public hearing. So with those trees, I think what the board is trying to do is if there's storage pods, there's screening, and if those trees exist, then that would probably be fine. If
state was to
the
remove them.
state was to remove those trees, then
Right.
we would, if this amendment passes, we would ask you to put trees up
To replace it.
to replace them. Generally speaking, the state doesn't like trees in their right of way. And I can say that wearing a DOT hat, that's where I work. Usually if they're in our property, we try to get rid of them when we can. So if they were to go away, that would, then the condition would.
So those trees weren't purposely planted, they just happened upon to grow there?
It's hard to say exactly where the lot line is. I mean, they're pretty close to the fence, and it's right on the curve of where the off-ramp is. They might actually be on his property without even knowing it. They might be on the state's property. They're probably right there on the edge.
Probably with eastern red cedars, they probably just grew up because they're right on the fence line and they never got mowed.
Do you want to amend your motion to stipulate what Jeff said?
Since the state likely at some point is going to take those trees out to make it clearer and cleaner and not to have to go back and say someone needs to plant trees now, I'll just leave my motion as it is to plant the evergreens on
Lot 3. Lot
on their-
3.
Lot 3. And that way, there's no worry in the future, should the state. Otherwise, it's just too complex. And who's going to monitor that?
Only if there's pods.
Only if there's pods on
On
Lot
lot
3.
3. Yep,
Right.
perfect.
Oh, a simple majority would pass the amendment.
Yep. So a simple majority will pass the amendment. Any other discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, Brandy.
Okay. Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Brink.
No.
Kays.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passes. So then we have to vote on the conditional use itself. This is for the approval of the storage units
As amended.
as amended. And this will take 4 yeses for approval. I will ask for a roll call vote for this.
All right. Ford.
Yes.
Kays.
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries. So that is the amended motion as presented is approved. Moving on the agenda, 5B is board consideration of a variance request on highway commercial property at 718 31st Street. Brandy, will you take over, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So this property, we have, let's see here. We've seen this one ahead of you in not the too far recent past. All right. So this is the property just south of where Dunnock is located, just north of Highway 212 by Hobby Lobby, very close to the New Venture property that we just looked at. So right here, we've rezoned this property now from I-1 to C3, and which was a good thing because it is adjacent to C3, and then also it brought the property into conformance. There was a residence on this property which was also legal non-conforming, which I believe has been removed or will be removed. So the property owner plans to develop this with a commercial building. And because the size of the lot is at the minimum of 100 feet in width, The proposal is for a variance to allow for a 10-foot side yard setback on the north side to allow additional space for maneuvering vehicles or whatnot, whatever this building ends up being, as far as what the permitted uses are, because we're not in front of us for any conditional use today. He's just wanting to plan for how to design the building. So the other thing to keep in mind is we have previously, and this is something that will be proposed, and these ordinance amendments will be coming forward, is that we have seen 3 variances in this year for side yard setbacks in the C3 and the I1 districts from the 20 feet to the 10 feet. The 10 feet is what staff will propose in the ordinance amendment, and that is not, it's not approved yet. So in ordinance today, it is still requires a 20-foot side yard setback. The mentality or the thing that we have seen with that is, so you need 10 feet from a property line to be conforming for your building code and fire separation. So then if everybody is at 10 feet, you at least need to have the minimum of 20. So you're having that sufficient separation between buildings. And then the other thing is to allow people to utilize the property and not, when they have 20 feet, and usually people like to go to the minimum, and so then they end up they can't even use that for parking because it's not wide enough. And then so it ends up just being a lot of unusable space where we see junk accumulating and just kind of outdoor storage area. So in this case, that's been discussed previously where you are able to push that building back and keep storage or items inside a building and keep properties looking neater. What else here that I might add? So you can see kind of the proposed footprint of the building here of a 60 by 140. It is all around, this lot is meeting the minimums for C3 highway commercial with the 100-foot width and the 21,000 square feet. You need 20,000 in the C3 district. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Brandy, is it this different owner who owns that lot and who owns the property just north of that?
Yep, so Dunick owns to the north there, the gravel pit operation.
Yep. Thank you.
And then the property to the south is still in the county, but it will be C3 if it ever annexes.
Mr. Chair. Brandy, what about parking requirements? I mean, so you're saying that he went to use that side lot for parking anyway, more than likely? I mean, that's what you said. There's usually not enough room in 20 feet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is his minimum parking requirement then for
It's
that large a building? There's not a lot left of anything.
It will, there is still quite a bit of space there, but that's also not saying that's going to be the footprint. It's more so just trying to show kind of the width of trying to get 60 feet in there and then still have allowable space. So he'll have 40 feet, or let's see here, he'll have 30 feet on the south side then for maneuvering vehicles or parking, which you need. And then it all depends on what the use of the building ends up being. And if say that he puts something that has large or high parking requirements, then the building might not be able to be that big if he needs to accommodate for more parking. But it's more so just to know how to design it and if he could utilize that north side to be able to have more room on the south side.
So that building or square that's shown is not actually what we're voting on. We're just voting on allowing them to be up to 10 feet from the property line instead of 20.
To give them more flexibility
Give
in
them
design.
flexibility.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's the other thing too, is like, I don't think the use has been finalized either. So he might have to come back for a conditional use, depending on, I think this is just trying to figure out options.
Is this property in the Gateway Overlay District?
It's not. That ends at 31st.
Okay.
Chair? I have a significant issue with the statement in the staff recommendation, that you did not find that the hardship determinations required by current ordinances are met. And the current ordinance does require a hardship, even if we think somewhere down the line, the city council might change it. If they may change it to 15. If we allow 10 and they change it to 15, will we go back and redo that? I don't think so.
No.
I think, for me, I'm not making the ordinance, I'm only following the ordinance. The city council makes the ordinance, and when it's stated that there is no hardship, which is one of the main criteria, I guess I don't see how we can vote yes. A hardship is required.
We'll look at his application here.
And Diana brings up a good point. If we do recodify our ordinance and we change it from 20 to 10 at that time, then it would be approved without a variance request.
Right.
You know, and if it, yeah, I think she makes a good point. If it got reapproved at 15, then we're looking at a 5-yard variance instead of 10.
Randy, Mr. Chair? It says in the application that he would not be able to access the far end of the property without the variance. What does that mean?
And I think the applicant is online, if you guys want to
I'll
open the
open the
public hearing.
public hearing.
Brian?
Let's see. Brian, are you there? I thought that was him. Let me check. Yeah, that is his number. It doesn't let us do anything with.
The public hearing is open. If there is anyone who wishes to speak in favor or against this item, please feel free to do so.
Mr. Chair. Brandy, is there a minimum parking for commercial C3? I mean,
It all depends on the use.
It's
But-
use and
so we're-
size of building. There's the chart, you know, depending on the use and how big the building is, it's, you know, one space for every 250 square feet or one space for every 500, depending on the use. You know, if it's a restaurant, it's one for every 3 chairs or.
so so how do you even, if this is just going to be a building that, you know, is up for, he's building it, doesn't know who's going to go in it or occupy it, how do we,
But we don't.
how do you allow for the size if you don't know what's going in? Do you, it's kind of, I mean, that's just, it's not even regardless of who it is. I'm just asking, how do you figure that out?
I
The
think,
wa-
I don't think that's what he's asking. I think he's asking to be able to maximize the lot. That building that is being proposed, I can tell you right now, is not gonna fit with only less than 30 feet on the back if I got 22-foot parking stalls. So I don't have enough for a 12-foot.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying this
So
one about
what I'm
Brian,
saying
but I'm
is,
just,
so what I'm saying is that I don't think the size of the building is what it is. I think it's like, if he could find a way to maximize where I only need 8 parking spots, I park them parallel to the southern boundary, I still have a driving lane, that maybe would work, but it would have to be a certain use. But if he's going to build that building where, it's got a more intensive use, the staff will require him to shrink that building down.
right, but basically, he's building a spec building and hoping to find a tenant. That's where I'm going. I mean, how does he even,
Well,
once
I
that
guess-
renter
I guess
comes?
that's on him, from my
I
opinion.
know, but
I mean,
I'm
I don't
I'm
worry
just throwing
about
that out there, because I'm just curious on how you would do that, you know, if it becomes a dress shop and a bridal shop or something out there. I'm just
I guess
I'm
I-
just playing
yeah.
devil's advocate. I'm just
No,
curious how
it's
you
a
would
good point.
figure it out.
I guess to me, it doesn't matter what he's proposing to put in there, because it's still gotta meet the parking requirements.
What if the standard is, if the standard is for the use, and he just builds a spec building, and then what? You know, now you have a different use 5 years down the road and you don't have enough parking.
Then he doesn't get the use.
Brian, do you hear me? All your meeting audio goes through your phone. You can mute and unmute by pressing *6. That's how you mute and unmute, Brian.
So again, Todd, I'm not picking on
arguing,
Brian. I'm curious because just like we said, so I have a building and then I put a different tenant. One day it's a bridal shop and the next day it's somebody who crushes cans for aluminum, recycle. I'm just saying, how do you build that building? Because they don't need to come before our board or before the city to open a business.
Change the use of that building to a use that requires more parking spaces. City staff could go and say, you know, if it's a restaurant, a liquor license, they're not gonna get that without the meeting of all parts.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I have a private business that I do that sells or needs more required. I'm just curious on, like Jeff said, is it based on square footage of the building? But it's really not, it's more on the use.
Both, it's both.
The way we've done it in the past, to answer that, is we've required it based on the initial use of the building when it's built. So if they build a storage warehouse that has, I believe, our lowest parking requirements, it's 1 per 1,000 square feet. If that's what they originally build, and someone builds a 10,000 square foot building, they would require 10 spots. And then if 10 years later, they, remodel it and make it into a movie theater, they don't have to buy more land to get more parking. Not that those two extremes happen, but movie theater is one of our higher parking space requirement ordinances.
But they could be required.
They could if it was a conditional use, but if it's another permitted use, it doesn't come back before the board.
No, it doesn't come back before the board, but if you have a parking requirement that's specific to a use and somebody wanted to bring mandamus proceedings against, to say you need to have so many parking spaces for the use, and if we were doing occupancy permits, if it ever got to that, then yes, you would look at
Perfect.
changing
Hey,
that
Brian.
over time. We don't do it, but you could.
Yeah, well, like I said,
Hear
the way
us?
we've always done it is we've done it off of the initial.
But
Okay,
sometimes you
perfect.
could
We're not
have,
going to mute
like-
you or anything.
Like
So
three,
just-
like two
Hey,
temporary
hold on, they're
walls
finishing
and
discussion.
3 different tenants, and then one of them moves out and says, okay, I want to grow, so then they take out one of them, you're going to need more parking, depending on what they need.
So the applicant is on the line. We got this sound thing figured out, so.
Brian, Mr. Chair, I had a question for Brian, this is Todd Kays. On your application, you stated that the hardship was that you wouldn't be able to get to one end of the property. And could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So if there's 20 feet, it's going to be barely enough without, depending on what we're trying to maneuver in there. I'd like to have a door on the south side of the building, farther towards the other end, and be able to drive down there and make a turn. With 20 feet, I'd have to have a door that's, if I had any size vehicle, I'd have to have a door that's extremely wide to be able to make the turn in a 20-foot width. And if I had ever had a trailer, there'd be no way to actually back a trailer down there and put it on the far end. If I needed to get down there, I need more room than 20 feet to be able to maneuver a vehicle down there to turn into the side door or to get a trailer down there.
Do you, again, Mr. Chair, Brian, do you have any intended use for the property? I understand it's just a generic concept at this point, but have you thought about what you maybe would like to see in that building?
Well, I do have someone that's interested in the property and in this building, but I need this square footage of building to accommodate this particular person. So as far as me downsizing and stuff, it kind of takes away my option of these people, actually.
Right, thank you.
Can you say what use they want to use the property for?
I personally wouldn't be at liberty to discuss their option, or even because of the property that they're currently in, I couldn't do that to them as much as I would like to.
Without being specific though, I mean, could you even say like a restaurant or a storage facility or even something vague enough that we wouldn't know who the tenant is?
It would be a business that would need a fair bit of square footage, and then to be able to have some customer parking on the front and then a side door to go in to put product in the rear of their building. So I would need to be able to make the turn to get these vehicles in that side door to unload.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that helps.
Is there any other questions for the applicant while we have him online? I guess I have one more. When you say customers, is it like retail customers where that'll be in and out every day, or is there more of like a,
They don't,
yeah,
I wouldn't say they don't do a lot of traffic, I wouldn't say, but they have product they need to store in the back that they need to be able to drive back there to get in the building to unload, and then their customers would access the front of the building.
And this is commercial, so retail components are permitted.
right.
Will there be a lot of green space required, like on the east and on the north side of the 10 feet? Will that all be green, like grass or something?
You can.
Yes, that would be my intention on the north side.
Yeah, so he would have to accommodate his drainage, but then also, you could also make that a condition.
On the east side? On the east side of the building?
Oh, I was talking north.
Yeah, but I was talking like north and then on the east side?
Well,
Or is he going to use that for parking, for driveway?
on the west side is where the driveway will be, and I'm not sure because I haven't seen a site plan. We're just looking at a variance on the north side. And most likely, he would probably use that area for parking.
Mr. Chair. Brandy, can you show the overhead? Oh, I guess you've got a map here. So the next building to the north is quite a distance away.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak in favor or against this item? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second from the board.
Mr. Chair, to get the thing started, I would make a motion to approve the variance, subject to the planting of grass on the north side of the building and no outdoor storage in that 10-foot space.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
If I was to support this, the basis of my support would be past practice of this board and previous boards in similar requests. One, two, the openness of the area to the north of this current structure. Three, probability of an amendment being made to the zoning ordinance inside of the next year. And that would be my justification if I was to vote yes.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just say I'm torn. I feel the same with a lot of those, and I also feel it it'd be nice to know what exactly we're voting on too, instead of just a blank check, so I'm torn. Is there any other discussion?
What's the setback on the east side of the building? Is that also 40 feet or 30 feet?
The east side is the rear, so then that is 30 feet. And then the front is the west, and that is 40 feet. And then the south is 20.
The south is 20, it shows 30.
Yep, and that's what he's
The
going to
required-
have.
The required setback is 20, the drawing shows 30 feet.
Because he wants to put garage, or he wants to put doors on the south side. So then that's the 30 feet, that's why he's trying to get additional room to be able to maneuver vehicles if there's doors on the south.
Yeah, and the 30-foot rear is what's required, and the 40-foot front is what's required, not necessarily what's shown in the picture. Hearing no other discussion, Brandy, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
All right. Ford,
No.
Kays,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
4 yeses and 1 no. A variance needs 5. Motion fails. Item 5C on the agenda is board consideration of a conditional use and variance request at 162 North Lake Drive. Brandy, will you take over, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Let me get to it. So this property here along North Lake Drive, the property owner has demolished the existing house and currently has a building permit, and also was going to reinforce the existing boathouse, or there was a boathouse existing on the property, and then was going to, reinforce it, and in doing that, ended up removing the structure because a lot of the walls and the roof, I think, were kind of rotten, and the property owner can speak to that too. So then that is why it's here before you again as a new building permit request to build on the existing foundation after, now that it's been reinforced, to be able to build the exact same building for the most part that was existing previously. And then, so same thing, they're gonna use the same foundation, and I'll show you a picture of that, which is why then it's right on the property line. So, and this, I also should have the date. Of when the boathouse was constructed originally. It should be in the staff report. 1975. So then you can see as well, one second, if you guys could, I'll finish my staff report before we start discussion. That's all right. So then you can see here, this foundation wall is existing, and the elevation, the further north you go, is less above adjacent grade than it is towards the lakeside, because it's kind of built into the landscape. So if you can kind of see that, how it opens up with the grade to the lake, like boathouses do typically. So this is kind of a, I would say, an unrealistic of showing how that grade changes, because it slopes more gradually. And then the previous boathouse had a pitched roof, and the property owner will be not putting a pitched roof back on and then putting the a flat roof, so they can use that as a gathering space, and then to do cable wire for railing. So between where the pitch of the roof went and where the railing will be the same height and elevation, but actually you'll be getting more transparency with not having a roof structure there and having the cable wire. Staff has not heard from any of the neighbors we sent out adjacent landowner letters, but there may be some to speak in the public hearing.
Thank you, Brandy. So just to make sure I'm getting this, so a conditional use is needed because all boathouses get a conditional use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the variance, this whole property is being redeveloped. The existing house was tore down, they're building a brand-new house. The existing boathouse was tore halfway down and they're rebuilding it. But the variance is because the boathouse that was there didn't meet existing, or didn't meet required setbacks. So if they rebuild where that one is, it needs a variance. So if they would have just not tore down the old one, then there wouldn't be a variance, but there would still be that building with, right on the lot line.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. Are they planning on really digging down into the shoreline so that they can get that big garage door? How tall is that garage door going to be on the lakeside?
That'll be a good question for the applicant.
I'll open the public hearing.
But the foundation is existing, so they're not digging anything down.
Oh, okay.
I'm Keith Mall. I'm the owner of the property. Yeah, the current boathouse, or the way it was built, we did have Blackburn and a couple construction people come and look at it, to see if there's any way to fix it. There was broken rafters, and so it was pretty much had to go down. So when we built the foundation on the house, the guy came and tried to put, as you can see, extra cement on the inside and brace it up so it'll meet, so it'll more or less last. So we're saving the floor and everything's current. We're just going to build up a little bit now just to put a deck on top of it. And we want to be able to use it below for like tubes and that kind of stuff.
Do you have a picture of what the existing boathouse looked like at the lakeside so we could see how big that door was?
It was,
You can kind of see it here.
it was a regular garage door, like a small garage door.
So how tall do you plan to have this boathouse from the shore, from the
It would-
sand going up?
It would be from the foundation on the inside on the picture, it would probably be 6 foot. We're actually not even gonna put garage doors, we'd probably put just bifold doors. So if the waves would hit it, it
So,
wouldn't bust it down.
so you're talking 6 foot and then on top of that?
Then a deck on top of that.
And the deck on top?
Yeah.
So Bonnie, in the staff report too, I have talked this over with Mr. Mill, and so it's approximately 3 foot above grade on the north side. Well, no, hang on, sorry. The existing, so walls will be added about 2 foot above the concrete foundation. And the walls are, yeah, so about 6 foot. But then with how the grade is, it will only stick out about 3 to 4 feet above grade on the north side. And then on the south side, it'll be about 7 feet of where the adjacent grade is because the topography slopes.
The topography slopes down towards the lake? Mm-hmm. And then flat, okay. That's just hard to see when you only see 2D.
Yeah.
How it really goes, okay.
The previous one was about 7 foot on the inside and then a pitched roof on top, so it probably went up 10 feet, I would say, or more than that. So it's gonna be lower and not an eyesore.
Chair, is there room on your property to move the boathouse over so that,
It would, I don't know how you would do with all that cement there, because it's cements, I mean, there's a cement floor and a cement foundations.
that's not, but my question is there room on your property to move the boathouse so that the setback would be, the current setback would be met?
Not really without redoing all, I don't know if that would be possible. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have
Mr.
any
Chair.
other, oh, go ahead.
So you're not going to have like a ramp for the boat to be pulled up into this boathouse?
It would be actually almost too small for a boat. I
So
mean,
it's basically a yard shed more than a boathouse?
It's going to be more like for tubes and that kind of stuff.
Clarification, this, both the CUP and the variance at the same time?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the applicant while he's at the podium? If not, I'll ask for, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in favor or against this item? Please feel free to approach the mic and state your name for the record.
Anyone else?
Are there any other boathouses in the area that line up with yours?
Yes. The neighbor right next door has one. To the north of us would have one. And there's two to the south, I believe.
I might just say too, so was an existing structure. He is improving it. And how this whole property was designed, it's been there since 1975. So he could have left the boathouse as is and not improved it at all, and that it would still exist there today.
And the cement would have been there still as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of or against this item?
And not hearing from the adjacent neighbor, that that would be the opportunity if there were issues. But also there's a seawall that connects to the boathouse of theirs that holds all of this property together. So it's shoreline stabilization, a joint effort there.
To the neighbor to the north?
The neighbor to the
South.
east, or,
South or east,
Yeah.
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 Oh,
The wall of the cement wall of the
Yeah, yeah.
boathouse is part of that retaining wall.
of the seawall.
Yep.
And you're part of the seawall too? You have a seawall on yours, mister?
No, there's no,
It extends out
Yeah,
from his foundation,
yeah.
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Because there's I don't know what you call it, but where the water comes from the road, it goes through the property. And so if you look where the boathouse wall is, we put in a new black tube for the water drainage from the road, so that we reinforced all that, because that was all collapsing on that also. And so that is hooked onto that, the side of the boathouse for the water drainage from the road to get into the lake.
So the drainage is buried in the ground? And then
Yes.
it'll go through the seawall or over the seawall or?
But it goes, yeah, more or less along that whole
Yeah.
side down here and then out the backside on the lake. And so we put all new piping and stuff in that to make sure it worked right.
That's great.
And Brandy, the city was, you guys know that they did it right and it drains well and everything. It meets all city standard?
Yep, they have a building permit
Thank
that
you.
issued. So here is where you can see where that foundation wall is, and then the neighbor's adjoining concrete seawall. So and just how the topography is, it actually kind of is functioning as a retaining wall for that property.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant or anyone else that wishes to speak in favor or against this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. The first item is the conditional use, so that is for permission to have a boathouse. So that'll be the first action that I'm would request from the board. Do I have a motion and a second?
Can I ask a question before you do that?
Sure.
What's the definition of a boathouse? Is it actual storage of the boat, or is it yard storage?
It is storage near a lake.
Brandy, I'm looking at the ordinance right now under definitions, and it says the definition of a boathouse is a building to house and protect a boat.
Oh, I didn't think we had it defined, actually.
You know I love my definitions.
Thank you for that.
And he stated that it's not going to house or store a boat.
Do we have boat defined in the ordinance?
You better put a paddle boat in there or something.
Well, yeah, we have those.
Right. So
It
it's
was-
like a boathouse's function is unique to a lake because you have toys, you have equipment, you have boats that you can put in there, but
And I think the question here isn't necessarily, is it gonna be a boat, a canoe? It's, are we okay with that structure right there, assuming it is a boat? I mean, no one's gonna open the doors and check. I mean, there's no use permit for that. But are we allowed with this property, not even at that location, are we allowed with this property at the lake to have a boathouse?
yes.
That's the first conditional use that we're voting on.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve number 1.
We have a motion to approve the boathouse at this property. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Could we do a roll call vote, please, Brandy?
Yep. Brink,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
5 yeses. The motion for a conditional use is approved. The second item is for the variance, and that's for the 0-foot setback. Do I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve.
We have a motion?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. I'll just say my findings on this are, this is an existing location where one already existed, and it, as far as I know, caused no hardship before, so I would assume that this would cause no additional hardship, and also that it's tied into the neighbor's retaining wall, makes me leaning towards approval. It's my findings.
Chair, I see that point, and I wonder if perhaps this should not be called a boathouse, because a boathouse is defined in our ordinance, and that's not what he's planning to build. I mean, like it or not, or if you want to try to twist it to fit, that's one thing, but just like when I voted no the last time, I'm here to support the ordinance, and whether I like it, it's the council's job to change the ordinance. And it specifically says, house a boat. So if it was something, a different type of building,
Diana,
that's something different.
we've had multiple boathouses this year. We've never asked an applicant if they plan on putting a boat in there or not. Boat is also, can be broad. I mean, we've had to define things very specifically. Now, yeah, as I stated, how that definition, that needs to be amended. And also, but that is why the Board of Adjustment exists, because there are situations where variances are needed and there are hardships that can be found. So on this, it's an existing foundation. And they're trying to improve a property.
Well, I just looked up boat, and boat says a vessel to be propelled over water by sail, oar, or engine. So if I blow up a tube and I paddle it, that's a boat. So that would be my basis, taking a simple man's logic on what a boat is.
Is that in the ordinance, Todd?
Well, it doesn't matter. We have the ability to define things as well. We have the ability to use a quasi judicial decision on what we think. If it's not defined in the ordinance, we have some discretion to determine what a boat is. And in my opinion, again, I don't care if there's a boat or not a boat in the boathouse, because I might have a garage but never store a car in it.
Yeah.
You know, some people live in their garages, and a garage is defined as something for the storage of an automobile. So it's a little bit nitpicky for me.
We should call it an accessory structure.
Right.
And because it literally, Todd, you're right. It's a structure because you're at, the exception is that you're at the lake and you want to have storage near the lake. Whatever you store in it, we don't care.
Unless you call it a boathouse. Is it possible to call it something else?
Yeah, we could call it an accessory structure.
Then would it would fit all the criteria that we're already discussing.
We'd still need a variance for the
Yeah,
accessory
Right.
yeah, and the conditional use is already approved.
Right, and that's irrelevant. I mean, just because we said you can put a boathouse there doesn't mean you have to. But could the variance be for an accessory structure, not a boathouse?
No, because we don't have the ability to do use variances. You know, I mean, from that perspective, if we have, if a use is specifically laid out in the ordinance, i.e. a boathouse, and we have already determined that a boathouse is a conditional use, and we've granted that conditional use, to me, that's a moot point. The question is now before us is whether or not we want to allow a boathouse with or without a boat to be built on a property line.
Right, because the conditional use is where that would have came up, if there were question on that. But the other thing is, it's not like, it's really what we're calling it. So it's kind of the same thing, and that's another cleanup that's happening. Because we should not call things unattached garages even. It should just be an accessory structure. Because we don't care, you could have this structure this big. The only reason why boathouses, why they're called that, I mean, it's unique to the lake that you're, and as I've already stated, but it's basically, they're all accessory structures. And so that does, I don't like that with ordinance either. But also, I mean, what do we define as a boat? It's broad. Todd just looked it up. And if I were you, I think I would just put a boat in there.
Yeah, well, we're gonna put canoes in.
Yeah.
Problem solved, move on.
Canoes, yeah.
We do have that one.
Again, to me, the question now before us is, do you want to allow this structure to be located on the property line?
So you do plan on putting a canoe in there?
We have 2 canoes that will go in there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion for the variance?
Made the
You
motion.
made the motion. Did I have a second?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the variance. Brandy, do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, Brandy, could I have a roll call vote?
Yes. Ford,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
5 yeses. The variance is approved. Moving on the agenda, item 6 is open public comment. Is there anything not on the agenda that someone wishes to discuss? Seeing none, I'll move on to new business. Do we have any new business?
None that I have.
Seeing none on our end, any old business?
Nope.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.